Hello and welcome to the Jason Eldridge Photo Show. In this video, we're going to learn how to use masks in Lightroom Classic. So before we get started, what is masking? Well, masking's been around for a long time, but it's been in Photoshop, and I guess some minor degree in Lightroom. But recently, relatively recently, they have upped their game in Lightroom Classic, and they've improved the masking features. So what masking is let's say there's an area of the image that you don't want to work on. Well, you can mask that part out, or you can mask the part that you want to work on. And I'm going to take a moment to show you how to use that. I'm not going to go into extreme detail of every option that masking has because, well, no one wants to listen to me talk that long. So let's take this bison that we have here in Yellowstone National Park, and we're going to see what the masking options allow us to do. So first of all, you have to be in the Develop module, and you'll see these little icons. You can hover over them. They'll tell you what you need to know, but the little circle with a dotted line around it, that's the one that we're after. So when you first come in, you're going to see it. It'll look a little bit like this where you're in the basic panel. But we're going to click the masking so we can kind of see what we want to do. Now, when you first click it, you're going to see options for subject, sky, background, and then you see objects and brush and linear gradient or radial gradient and range and people. We're not going to cover people because I don't typically take photos of people. I normally do nature, so that's where we are. But we're just not gonna mess with that. All right, so it comes in like this. It will change once you add your first mask. So if it doesn't look like this when you first open it up, that means there's a chance that you've been in here and done a mask to begin with. So back before it was called masking, we used to have just the brush tool or linear gradient or radial gradient. So now to do the brush, you have to go to the mask and then you click brush. And here you have a few options. You can see it getting bigger with a mouse wheel. You can change what you want to do. And as you can see, I have it set so the overlay is on it so I can see what I'm doing. So in this situation, I would want to go around the bison because I want to darken the background. Well, you can see right here with the feathering and everything that I have that it bled over a little bit. If that happens, you can just hit the Alt button and you'll get a minus, and you can go in and you can kind of erase it. And then you can do pretty much whatever you want to after that. Like you can drop the exposure of the background, you can do the highlights in the background, mess with however you want, add blacks for contrast, whatever you want to do to that background you can now do. You can even shift the color, and I double clicked exposure right there and it reset it. That's why you see the color overlay. You can turn that color overlay off by this little checkbox, but I prefer to leave it on because as soon as you make an adjustment, it shows you that adjustment and goes away. So that way I can just kind of keep an eye on where I have selected. So we're going to darken the background a little bit. But you can also change the color temperature if you want of that specific area where the brush was, the hue, the tint, saturation. You can even add color to that point. You can also add your point colors if you want to do it that way. You can do a curve specific to that mask. And then you have your texture, clarity, dehaze, and then you can add your grain. And then you've got your detail, sharpness, noise, moire, and defringe if you want to get in there to a little bit more. And then it goes down into the basic panel here. So all of those are options that you have when you're doing the mask. Now let's say you made this mask and you don't like it, you don't want it, you want to get rid of the mask. How do you do that? Well, you can go up here and you can click individual ones and delete them. And then you can click the overall and delete all of it if you want. And now we're back to what it looked like when you first opened up the mask. So in this situation, because the brush is a great tool, but it's definitely not the most precise. So in this situation, we're going to let AI do something for us. We're going to say subject, and what it's going to do is it's going to look on the photo and it's going to try to find your subject. Now, it doesn't know what your subject is, but it's going to guess, and it does a decent job of guessing. So we're going to hit subject and watch this. Look at that. Now the bison, even the hairs on the bison, the fur on the bison is selected, and that is pretty precise. That is nice. Ooh, that rhymed. It happens. All right, exposure. So here you can bring up the bison a little bit if you want. You can mess with the whites to kind of detail that light hitting on the top. You can add a little bit of black to give some contrast. If you want to warm the bison up a little bit, look at that, you can, and get a little bit more of a brown in the fur. And this is not affecting anything else in the photo. That's pretty cool. You can add a little bit of saturation to him. Whatever you want to do. Work your tone curve. Add any grain if you want to. Whatever you want. Clarity, we're going to make him pop out a little bit more because why not? All right. Now you can see that this mask. So what if we want to mess with the background? Well, you'll notice that all of those options are gone now. So what do? So right up here up top on this little flyout, you got to create new mask. And you can create the new mask. And now all of those options are there for what kind of mask you want to create. Well, this time we're going to work on the background. So we're going to select background. And we know it did a good job selecting the subject in this instance. So look how good a job it does in selecting the background. Now you can go in and make your changes to just the background. Add some blacks, give it a little contrast. You want to bring the exposure down so that it highlights the animal, your subject. And we're going to mess a little bit with the saturation just because we can. All right, so now we've made two masks, one for the subject, one for the background. Well, what if we want to do something else? Like, let's say I want to add a special kind of radial vignette. Well, you can do that. Hit the little plus, find your radial gradient. You can do this here. And now you have the option to invert if you want. So I'm going to invert so it's only around the edges, and I'm going to drop that down, like darken the edges a little bit of a vignette, just to draw your eye once again to the bison. You can do that invert with anything. Let's say I want to grab that subject again, select the subject, but I've selected the subject and I decide I really wanted the background, not the subject. Well, right here you can hit the little invert, and now it's got the background instead of the subject. So that is pretty cool. Now we're going to move over onto another image that I know has a few problems when it comes to your AI. Like, you would think that this image, the subject is pretty obvious, but watch what happens when I go to select subject. All right, it gets most of the barn, but for some strange reason, it does not get this little triangle on the barn. But there's a way that you can fix that. So you go up here to the mask and you click on it and you see the subject, the first one that we just put on, and you can hit add. Now it's going to say, how do you want to add it? Well, you can add it with a brush if you want. Watch this. Now you just go in and look at that. Now that's part of it. So it seems like I'm pretty good, but when you hit invert, it gets all kinds of wonky. And now you can see that's a little weird. That's because you're on the brush. If you hit subject and you go invert, now it's going to leave that. So what are your options? Well, it's a little bit limited right now. You can choose which one you like the best, invert it, and then you can go in here and you can say, I want to subtract, and you can say I want to subtract it with a brush. I'm going to go in here and I'm going to subtract this. So now it's just the background that's selected. And that's pretty cool because you can still go in and do all the things you need to do. So it's not perfect, but I want to show you a neat little trick. So I'm going to delete this mask and we're going to go back to where we started. And the trick is, instead of using a subject, sky, or background, I'm going to use the object tool. And you can make your brush as big as you want, whatever you're comfortable with here. And I'm just going to sloppily cover this barn with this object tool. I'm going to let go and watch this. Look at that. It did a fantastic job, and now you can do the insert or the invert if you want and get your background, or you can go back to having your subject. So what that does, the object, is it allows you to specifically say, this is my subject. If you're confused, AI, let me help you out. Here's the subject, and that's what that does. Now, I want to talk about ranges. So before I do that, actually, linear gradient, that is one you've used probably a few times if you want to darken the sky, however you want to do that. But I find using AI a little bit more precise, but still, like in this situation, it works great. So whatever floats your boat. And then you can delete that mask. Just click on it and hit the delete key and it goes away. Now, range, this one's pretty cool too. Color range. You can say, I want only a specific color. And see that little dropper right there? Well, you get to tell it what color you want to be looked at. So you can click this right here, and it's going to click all the green. And if you'll notice, it even gets the green up here in the mountains where the trees are. And you can refine that. You can see with that overlay, all the red is what it's going to mess with when you make your changes. So you can make sure there's nothing on the barn, a little bit of green in there, a little bit of green on the mountains. And then you can make your changes if you want to darken that a little bit, if you want to brighten it up, or if you want to add blacks, anything you want to do, you can now do it to that specific color range. And if you look at the mask up here, you can kind of see where it is, the white areas there is what it's affecting. There's another range there, and it's a little bit like luminosity masking, but it's not quite as powerful as Photoshop would be. But still, it gives you an option that you might not have had otherwise. So we're going to range and lumens range, and I'm going to pick what I want. So I'm going to click that right there, and you can see it grabbed a lot. Well, here you can make your changes, you can make it a little bit more specific, and you can even see now it's kind of in the sky and on the snow, but you can even make that go away a little bit to where it's just on the brighter snow. And that's how you can use that. And so if there's a part of the image that is based on luminosity that you're interested in dealing with, this option can give you additional options for dealing with that luminosity range. Now, I have a confession to make. I am not the guru of Lightroom that knows all and sees all. Nope. I have no idea what depth range is. If you've made it this far and you know what depth range is, please leave a comment below. Let me know what that is. Yes, I know I could Google it, but at least this way I get some kind of interaction on this video. That's what we're here for. All right. So that is a quick tutorial of the masking feature. And as you can see, it is very, very powerful, and it lets you finish the image the way you want to finish it. It allows your vision as a photographer to come through the post-processing. And I think it's a wonderful tool. It will only get better from here. Let me know in the comments below if you use the mask. Have you used it before? Are you using it now after you've watched this amazing video? I truly hope you do. Leave a comment, let me know. Well, I hope you enjoyed that video on how to use Lightroom masks. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, hit the little bell. All of this really does help. And as always, grab your camera, get off the couch, escape, explore, and create.